SLT එක්ක ස්පීඩ් අප් වෙන්න. සුපර් ඩීල්ස් අත්විඳින්න. SLT ස්පීඩ් අප් සුපර් ඩීල්ස් සැප්තැම්බර් 30 දක්වා පමණයි.
Making headlines tonight, the head of state questioned. President Maithripala Sirisena testifies before PSC probing Easter attacks. Final report to be handed over to Parliament at the end of October. We will make it happen. UNP members insist Sajid be named candidate. Prepared to use force if not. Not my call. Magistrate informs CID that Gotabaya Rajapakse's 2005 voting controversy, a matter of US jurisdiction. Avantgarde saga. Telephone conversations between Avantgarde chairman and ex-Bribery Commission chief released. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Friday, the 20th of September 2019.
From AdaDerana. This is AdaDerana First at 9.
Nava Lifebuoy Cool Fresh සහ Lemon Fresh Menthol සහ Lemon සාරයෙන් දහඩිය ගඳ ඇති කරන සංගුණ විස බීජ වලින් ආරක්ෂා කර ඔබව fresh කරයි. විස බීජ off, fresh එක on.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to First at 9 on AdaDerana 24, bringing to you news from across Sri Lanka and around the world tonight. I'm Leader Rajapakse. We start off with your top story tonight. President Maithripala Sirisena testified before the Parliamentary Select Committee probing the Easter Sunday attacks at the Presidential Secretariat this morning. Speaking to media, the committee member, MP Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa, said that the PSC hopes to present their final report to Parliament before the 31st of next month. With today's testimony, the committee concluded its recordings of statements.
Members of the Parliamentary Committee investigating the Easter Sunday attacks were seen entering the premises of the Presidential Secretariat at 10 a.m. to record the President's testimony regarding the spate of attacks that took place on April 21st. The members of the PSC left the Presidential Secretariat at 1:15 this afternoon, bringing the inquiry to a close.
අපි ජනාධිපතිවරයාගෙන් විමසා සිටියා අපේ රටේ ආරක්ෂක යාන්ත්‍රණය දුබල වෙලා තිබුණේ කොතනද ආරක්ෂක කවුන්සිලේ දිගින් දිගටම කැඳවුන්නේ නැත්තේ ඇයි එවැනි කරුණු පිළිබඳව අපි ජනාධිපතිවරයාගෙන් විමසා සිටියා. වගේම ජනාධිපතිවරයා විසින් මලල්ගොඩ කමිටුවේ වාර්තාව තේරීම්කාරක සභාවට ලබා දුන්නා. ඒ වාර්තාවත් අධ්‍යයනය කරලා ඒ වාර්තාවේ තිබෙන නිර්දේශ සහ නිරීක්ෂණයනුත් අපේ වාර්තාවට තුරත් කරන්න අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. අදින් අපි සාක්ෂි විමසීම කටයුතු අවසන් කරනවා. දැන් අපිට පුළුවන් වාර්තාව අවසන් වාර්තාව සකස් කරලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඔක්තෝබර් 31න් කලින් අපි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට මේ වාර්තාව ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා.
කිස කෙස යනවාද විසඳුම දින 6න් පුරාණයේ පටන් භාවිතා කරන ඉපැරණි ශාකසාර වට්ටෝරුවකට අනුව නිපදවන ගානීෂා hair growth oil සියලුම ෆාමසි සහ වෙළඳ සැල් වලින්.
A decision on the revision application heard yesterday against the granting of bail to IGP Pujith Jayasundara and ex-Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando will be delivered on the 9th of October. Deputy Solicitor General Dilip Papiras declared that the order issued by the Colombo Chief Magistrate granting bail to the two suspects was completely erroneous, biased and effectively denied justice to the victims of the Easter Sunday attacks. He added that the magistrate had granted the suspects bail based on a preconceived notion, citing insufficient evidence to charge suspects for murder. He also stated that the magistrate's court has no authority to issue a bail order in this manner and requested the High Court to revise the said bail order and issue an order to place the suspects back in remand custody. The Colombo Chief Magistrate has informed the Criminal Investigations Department that they need not seek the permission of the courts to question SLPP's presidential hopeful Gotabaya Rajapakse for engaging in political activities while holding his US citizenship, as it does not fall under Sri Lankan jurisdiction. The CID made this request following up on a complaint lodged by Chandragupta Tenuara and Gamini Viyangoda on the 15th of August, alleging that the former Defence Secretary voted in the 2005 presidential election while still a US citizen. The complaint alleged that by doing so, he had violated both election and citizenship laws of the United States. The Colombo Chief Magistrate also pointed out that as a result, the case will be dismissed and advised them to consult the Department of Immigration and Emigration as well as the Foreign Ministry in order to aid their investigation. The cash deposit on behalf of Sri Lanka Putana Palpiya presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapakse was made at the Election Commission today. Two more candidates, including an independent contestant, also handed over their deposits to contest the presidential election as well.
The handing over of deposits for the presidential poll scheduled for the 16th of November began yesterday. A group including General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Putana Palpiya, Attorney at Law Sagara Karyawasa made the deposit on behalf of the party's presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapakse. In addition, Venerable Aparakke Punyananda Thera and the leader of Apajana Balaya Saman Pereira also made their deposits. Meanwhile, the Election Commission issued a special statement today addressed to the Government Information Department. It warned that given the declaration of the presidential election, the use of state properties or state functions to promote political parties, candidates and politicians is a punishable offence. Despite the announcement, job interviews continued to be held at several government institutions today. Chairman of the Election Commission Mahinda Deshapriya expressed views on the matter today.
ජනාධිපතිවරණය සඳහා නාම යෝජනා කැඳවීමේ දැන්වීම නිකුත් කරාට පස්සේ රාජ්‍ය ආයතන පළාත් සභාවල පළාත් පාලන ආයතනවල රැකියා දෙනවා කියලා අවිධිමත් ලෙස පැමිණිලි ලැබෙනවා. දිගින් දිගටම අඛණ්ඩව කරගෙන ආපු වැඩපිළිවෙලක කොටසක් යටතේ දැන් රැකියා දීම ඉතුරු වෙලා තියෙනවා නම් ඉල්ලුම්පත් කැඳවලා තියෙනවා නම් ඉන්ටර්වයු කරලා තියෙනවා නම් නැත්නම් ඉන්ටර්වයු කැඳවගෙන යනවා නම් ඒක අපට පෙනෙනවා නම් මෙම ආයතනයේ පැවැත්මට අත්‍යවශ්‍යයි. මේක මේ ඡන්ද විමසීම නිසා කඩුමුඩියේ කරන වැඩක් නෙවෙයි කියලා සියලුම තොරතුරු අපට දැන්නුවොත් පමණක් අපි ඒ සඳහා ඉඩ දෙනවා. දේශපාලනඥයන්ගේ උවමනාව මත රැකියා දීම් නිලධාරීන්ට කරන්න බෑ.
Several ministers in the United National Party have issued a warning to the party's leadership that they're prepared to use force to achieve their means if Deputy Leader Minister Sajith Premadasa isn't named the party's presidential candidate. Meanwhile, leader of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, Minister Rauf Hakim, expressed an emphatic view that a UNP victory can only be achieved if Sajith Premadasa contests as its presidential candidate.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe convened a meeting of United National Front party leaders last night to discuss the issue of the party's presidential contender.
වෙන අඟහරුවාද වෙනකොට එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ කෘත්‍යාධිකාරී මණ්ඩලය කැඳවලා අන්තිම තීන්දුව ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න කටයුතු කරනවායි කියලා. සුළු පක්ෂ හැටියට ඉන්න හැම පක්ෂයක්ම අපි ජනප්‍රිය අපේක්ෂකයා කවුද කියන එක පිළිබඳව දැනුම් දීලා තිබෙනවා. කවුද අපේක්ෂකයා? ඔබතුමා හොයාගන්න සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස දැම්මොත් දිනෙනවා. ඒක අනිවාර්යෙන්ම මට කියන්න ඕනේ.
Meanwhile, Deputy Leader of the UNP Minister Sajith Premadasa, who is vying for the party's presidential candidacy, attended an event in Angunukula Palace. In the meantime, the Mahasangha from the three Buddhist sects in Sri Lanka engaged in a satyagraha at the Vihara Mahadevi Park in Colombo, demanding that Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe nominate Minister Sajith Premadasa as the party's candidate. Meanwhile, several ministers weighed in regarding the party's candidate for the 7th executive president of the country.
Meanwhile, parliamentarian Ashumar Singha called for an investigation into the statement made by Minister Rauf Hakim, claiming the cabinet proposal to abolish the executive presidency as the brainchild of the Prime Ministers. Meanwhile, Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena also moved to provide clarifications over the matter.
His Excellency the President is the one who has called the cabinet meeting yesterday, and he is the one who wanted to abolish the presidency. So clearly, in policy, UNP always have told that we want to abolish the presidency, but not in an emergency matter.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe clarified that they cannot make any amendments to the constitution without the support of the Sri Lanka Putana Palpiya. Speaking at an event in Mirigama today about what transpired during the cabinet meeting yesterday, the Premier went on to say that as much as every party should reach a decision with amendments on the executive presidency, at the end the decision lies with the people. His comments come at a time where the President called for an emergency cabinet meeting yesterday on the proposal of the abolishment of executive presidency.
මේ සතියේ මුල් භාගයේදී අලුත් යෝජනාවක් සමහර සිවිල් සංවිධාන ආගමික සංවිධාන යොමු කරා. ජනතා විමුක්ති පෙරමුණේ 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනය පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ වහාම සම්මත කරන්න කියලා. ඒ සාකච්ඡාවලට මම සම්බන්ධ වෙලා තිබුණේ නැහැ. ඒ ගැන මටත් ආරංචි වුණා. ඊයේ ජනාධිපතිතුමා මට කතා කරලා ඇහුවා දැන් මේ ගැන කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ කතා කරමුද? අපේ පක්ෂ අතර මේවා ගැන සාකච්ඡා කරලා නොතිබුණ නිසා අපේ පක්ෂ ඇතුළත් කරපු නිසා මම කිව්වා හොඳයි මෙතන කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. එතුමා දවල්ට කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයක් ඇඳෙව්වා. ඊට ඉස්සෙල්ලා මම අපේ ඇමති මණ්ඩලයක් ඇඳෙව්වා. එතන විවිධ අදහස් තිබුණා. උණුසුම් තත්ත්වයකට එකඟ වුණා අන්තිමට ඒ පක්ෂ මේ ගැන තීරණය කරන්නට කියලා තමයි අන්තිමටම එතනින් අවසන් වුණේ. එදත් මම කිව්වේ ඊයේත් කිව්වේ මේක යථාර්ථය පොහොට්ටුවේ ඡන්ද නැතුව ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධනයක් අනුමත කරගන්න බෑ. අපිට 150ක් නැහැ. කොහොම හරි මේක විවෘතව කතා කරන එක රටේ යුතුයකමක්. ඡන්දයක් එක්ක ඒක අපිට නවත්තන්න බෑ. ඒක කර යුතුයි. මේ විධායක ජනාධිපතිතුමා තියාගන්නවද නැද්ද? මොකද්ද කරන්න කියලා හැම පක්ෂයකම ගන්න තියෙන තීරණයක් තියෙනවා. ජනතාව තමයි අන්තිම තීරණය අරගන්නේ.
Opposition leader Mahinda Rajapakse has labelled the tabling of the cabinet proposal on the abolishment of the executive presidency when the dates of the presidential election have been announced a farce. Speaking to media in Caravanala today, the opposition leader hinted at the move being a delaying tactic as the UNP is still unable to decide on their presidential candidate.
Opposition leader Mahinda Rajapakse and a group of politicians paid their last respects to late Deputy Minister H.R. Maithripala at his residence in Caravanala today. The opposition leader later addressed media.
මේ අවසාන මොහොතේ ජනාධිපතිවරණය තියෙනවා කියලා මැතිවරණ කොමසාරිස්වරයා දින නියම කරාට පස්සේ මේ කරේ බොරුවක් අංචාවක් ප්‍රෝඩාවක් මම හිතනවා ඉල්ලන්න කෙනෙක් හරියට තෝරගන්න බැරි පිළිලා තියෙන තත්ත්වයක් තියෙන්නේ නායකයාට විරුද්ධයි උපනායකයා. ඉතින් මේක විහිළුවක්නේ දේශපාලන පක්ෂයක් නෙවෙයි එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය අද නිකන් විනාශ වෙලා ගිහිල්ලා. සර් දැන්ට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට පස්සේ ලේකම් තුනක් වෙනවා ඒකත් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරනවා. ඒවා විහිළු කතා කරන්න එපා. ඔව් ඒක ජනාධිපතිතුමත් එක්ක මම බේර ගන්නවා.
Sri Lanka Putana Palpiya presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapakse engaged in interfaith tour of several religious sites in the Ratnapura district. During a sermon following a special Pirit ceremony at the historic Samandevala, chief priest of the Godakavela Sri Mahinda Mahavihara, Venerable Kompitiye Sri Susila Thera, urged the public to shed their traditional political ties in favour of a candidate that can steer the country on the right path.
Chief incumbent of the Godakavela Sri Mahinda Mahavihara, Venerable Kompitiye Sri Susila Thera, called on the public to shed their traditional political affiliations and lend their support to the former Defence Secretary to ensure a landslide victory for the sake of the country.
අපිට අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා රටට නායකයෙක් දැන් නායකයෙක් නෑ රටේ නායකයෙක් නෑ කඹා දෙන මිනිස්සු ටිකක් ඉන්නවා අපිට හොඳට විශ්වාසයක් තියෙනවා ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා මෙරට කරන්න පුළුවන් නායකයෙක්, හොඳ බල තියෙන නායකයෙක්, දැක්මක් තියෙන නායකයෙක්, ඒ වගේම ජනතා දුක හොඳට හඳුනන නායකයෙක් කියන එක අපි හොඳාකාරව දන්නවා ඔබතුමා. මෙරට ආදරේ. පාරම්පරික පුරුද්දට ගිහිල්ලා වැරදි විදියට කතරේ ගහනවා නම් අපේ ජාතියේ මිනිවල කපන්න මේ කතරේ ගහන්න. මතක තියාගන්න. 60 ඉක්මවා ලබන ලෝකේ මවිත වෙන ජයග්‍රහණයක් කරා යන්නට ශක්තිය වාසනාව ධෛර්යය ලැබේවා කියලා ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරමි.
Later, the SLPP candidate also visited the Ratnapura Jannat Jumma Mosque, the Sivan Hindu Kovil and St. Aloysius Church as well.
We do have more local news and more in business after this short break. Welcome back. A telephone conversation between Avantgarde chairman Sanka and former Director-General of the Bribery Commission and now Solicitor General Leader Wickremesinghe was released today. The telephone conversation was released via the Facebook account of the Avantgarde chairman.
मैडम මේකේ 4000ක ගෙදර රස්තාවල් නැතිලා අද ඉන්නසුන යන්න නැති වෙලා මම පොඩ නැතිලා ගෙවල් ටික නැති වෙලා ළමයි ඉගෙන ඉස්කෝලේ නැත්තරම නැති වුණා මේ මැඩම් මේ සුන්ගේ
because I never expected the business to stop because it's one of the best businesses in the country. Sanka, if I ever had the slightest knowledge
yes madam
මම ජීවිතේට ඕක නඩුව දාන්නේ මොකද මේ කරුමකාර දේශපාලනය හන්දා ඔය මම ඔයාගේ ඔෆිස් එකේ තියෙන 7500කට වැඩිය ඒක හන්දා මම දන්නවා every good I know how you when the officers are in the shape how you looked after the families මම මේ කවුද ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂට විරුද්ධව නඩු දාන්නේ මම ඇත්තටම ඒ කරපු මුළු මේවක ගැනම රිග්‍රෙට් වෙනවා I know how to break the law and make the law both.
However, attempts by AdaDerana to contact the former Bribery Commission chief in this regard proved unsuccessful. Meanwhile, the Ravana Balaya and Singhale organizations lodged complaints with the Criminal Investigation Department against the Solicitor General. The Avantgarde case against former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapakse was taken up before the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court today. The Colombo Chief Magistrates Court informed that it's yet to receive the order delivered by the Court of Appeal discharging former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapakse from the Avantgarde case.
Taking you to business news, Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade Malik Samara Wickrama says that the government has their eyes set on reaching a target of $28 billion in exports by 2022. Speaking at the Presidential Exports Awards ceremony held yesterday, the minister added that the private sector must be open towards free trade agreements, while all state sectors must collaborate in strengthening the export sector. Also speaking at the same event, Minister Sajith Premadasa said that his economic policy will be driven under an export or perish theme, which will encourage exports of new products to untapped markets.
The 23rd Presidential Export Awards ceremony was held under the auspices of President Maithripalapala yesterday. Awards were presented to exporters who have made a significant contribution to Sri Lanka's exports in the 2018-2019 financial. Camso Lodestar Private Limited received the Market Diversified Export of the Year award, while MAS Holdings was awarded the Export Conglomerate of the Year award. Brandix Apparel Limited won the most coveted award of the night, recognized as the Export of the Year at the 23rd Presidential Export Award.
For 2019, we are working hard towards reaching $18.5 billion, despite the multiple setbacks we have faced. Our goal for the next 3 years is to increase exports to $28 billion by 2022. The next challenge we must tackle should be that of building more and more Sri Lankan brands for overseas markets. The private sector must be supportive and be much more open to new initiatives like FTAs. Government ministries and agencies cannot afford to work in silos and must be extremely collaborative with an eye on the bigger prize to be won, and they must look beyond their own turfs. Contrary to popular belief, a governance model driven by authoritarianism and impunity won't propel our private sector. It may sound good, but it's actually very damaging to a country's private sector. It stifles innovation and breeds discrimination. In the previous regime, there were no entrepreneurs who were supported, only deal makers who made fat commissions.
Export or perish is my policy. The challenge today is for us to export new products to new markets. Sri Lanka has an anti-export policy regime that makes your input costs uncompetitive. Byzantine and politicized tariff structure also makes the cost of tax compliance very high and encourages massive corruption. As the regulator and largest landowner and employer, the state has a major role to play in each of these sectors. But there's a problem. The state does not know how much land it owns, which department owns which land, and what the land is being utilized for, and how much the value of the land. As a result of this confusion, we, as a country that is aspiring to be an export-driven economy, we are in dire straits.
Taking into the stock market, the all-share price index ended 0.30% down to 5,793.89, while the Bows fell 0.54% for the week ending today. Meanwhile, foreign investors bought a net 129.1 million rupees worth of shares. And we take a brief look at the report today.
Lost 0.5%, mainly due to price losses in counters such as John Keel's Holdings, Commercial Bank and Distilleries. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 decreased by 1.7%. The average daily turnover for the week was up from last week to 1.4 billion rupees. This was due to a major transaction reported in Overseas Realty PLC to an amount of 4.4 billion rupees. Land and property sector recorded the highest sector turnover during the week, whilst the second highest was seen in diversified sector.
The rupee, meanwhile, closed weaker for a fifth straight session on continued demand for dollars from banks, while equities ended the week on a negative note. The rupee was weaker at 0.14% at 181.10 to 181.20 against the dollar. Here's a look at your forex rates today. To stay with us here at First at 9, we'll return with more news from overseas. In the backdrop of the UN Climate Summit in New York, thousands of climate protesters took to the streets all across the world today, calling for sterner action from their leaders to avoid global environmental catastrophe.
Thousands of people across the world, including America, Australia, Germany, India and Japan, have taken to the streets today, demanding that leaders gathered for a UN Climate Action Summit adopt urgent measures to head off an environmental catastrophe. Similar protests inspired by 16-year-old Swedish activist Greta Thunberg are planned in some 150 countries on Friday. The aim is for students and others from around the world to speak in one voice about the impending effects of climate change on the planet. Protesters in Australia crossed Brisbane's Victoria Bridge carrying signs reading "Wake up Australia, climate is changing" and broken promises. The strike will culminate in New York when Thunberg, who has been nominated for a Nobel Prize for her climate activism, will spearhead a rally at the home of the United Nations headquarters. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan netball sensation Tharjini Sivalingam was also spotted at the protests in Melbourne, lending her voice to the calls for urgent climate action. A protest was also held outside the Fort Railway Station in solidarity with the global action.